welcome on into the Falls Count Anywhere podcast. Charlie Turner here along with Chris DiCarlo and John Rustino. Gentlemen, we are slowly thawing out here in Western New York.
Kind of
staying warm where you're located there. I know we had, and not only that, wait, screw the weather for a second. We had an earthquake. We had an earthquake here last week. And let me ask you about that. I know, John, you didn't get to experience the earthquake.
Yeah, man.
No. I thought it was somebody in their car with the beats bumping at 6 a.m. I was like, what's this guy doing out there? But come to realize it was a 3.8 we had here in Western New York. So everybody's all good, though, I take it, right?
Yeah, we're all good. My wife thought it was some kind of truck going down the street, but it was for real. Niagara Falls is a major fault line for years and years. So
let me say something real fast, man. I listened to a couple from West Seneca. They had some ring footage that was loud. And could you imagine if that's 3.8? What those poor people like in Turkey and all those places 7.8? Oh my, it's gotta sound like a truck, like a train coming at them. But
yeah,
we're watching
buildings collapsing. Just prayers
oh
out
my
to
God.
Craziness.
Yeah,
gentlemen. Of course, we are in February. We're on the road to WrestleMania. Of course, we talk current wrestling here, but we also talk classic wrestling, and we have a very great guest joining us today. Chris, did you want to go ahead and take the intro on our guest for today?
Yes, of course. We speak of wrestling royalty here on this show, and today we are joined by a gentleman who is wrestling royalty, former pro wrestler, one of the greats in the business from down in Portland, the NWA, the WWC, the one and only Mr. Ricky Santana. Thank you so much for joining us today on Falls Count Anywhere.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk a little bit of wrestling to people who appreciate the nature of the business.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
We do.
Absolutely. We love talking to classic wrestling, Ricky, and we're so glad to have you on with us, man. We definitely want to talk about your career first and foremost. Wrestling is a crazy business, and I'm sure you know that more than us. How did you get started? Who trained you to get your foot in the door, and how did you get started in wrestling?
Well, it was the great Malenko. I went to his school. He kind of helped me moving forward. But there were some of the greats that really, really stepped in to help me out after I was training. One of them is Gerald Briscoe. The other being Chavo Guerrero Sr., God rest his soul. And, of course, Terry Funk. So, it was like a great honor because growing up as a kid and being exposed to championship wrestling from Florida, those were the legends. And then I get to have them help me advance my career and then step in the ring with a lot of them. So it's kind of like pretty cool if you ask me.
Absolutely. And
that's the way we feel being friends with, I just told the guys, Gennard Soley, one of Gordon's sons just called me a few days ago, and these connections and doing this show is just great, even though we've been fans since 1980.
Yeah, it's a small circle, tight circle. The boys are always the boys, and I'm always grateful to go to the CAC, obviously. And in Tampa, they do one every 3 months, the Legends Luncheon, where they honor people from the old school.
I'm glad you brought up the CAC, the Cauliflower Alley Club. For those not familiar, you recently received an award from them, correct?
Yes, I did. A couple years ago, actually, it was 2 years ago. I was on there when Rey Mysterio got his, Medusa got hers. It was an honor for me to be recognized by my peers for my contributions to the business. It doesn't always necessarily mean that you headlined WrestleMania or headlined a Starrcade to be a contributing part in this business. And I was always taught that you always give back. The veterans that I worked with helped me out when I was green and went behind the ears. And I try to help everybody that I come in contact with, giving them my insight to what I learned over the years from some of the greats.
That's awesome. And did you have anybody that stood out as far as who helped you get established in the business, or who really kind of showed you the ropes while you were still green and still getting your feet wet?
Oh, well, I had, got with Malenko, and he was, doing his shows, and met a gentleman who happened to know George Scott, who was a booker in the Carolinas, and then went on to at first book WWF when Vince was buying out all the territories. And that's where I met Jerry Briscoe. It was it was kind of like a rib that really got me close with Jerry. I was enhancement, job material like everybody breaking in the business, and I had a match scheduled with Greg the Hammer Valentine. So Jerry comes up before and he goes, "Hey, Hammer's move, that forearm smash." I go, "Yeah." He says, "Just do me a favor, just say something witty and sarcastic while he's hitting you. I want to see his reaction." I said, "Okay." What do I know, right? So I'm up there and Greg leans back and he lays that forearm in there. And I just said, "Is that it?" And his eyes got really, really big. And he proceeded to lay about 6 or 7 of them in there, pretty snug, right? So the match is over. And back then, the job guy rolls out. We're in Poughkeepsie, so you got to go down all those stairs. And as I'm coming through the door, I can hear the feet coming, but like running. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. Pardon me, but that's what I thought, right? Going down the steps, getting to the bottom, and there's the Funks, and there's Briscoe, and there's Steamboat, and they're all just laughing, right? So I get down to the bottom, and Valentine's behind me, and he goes, "Oh, kid, I knew you weren't that stupid. I just want to know who put you up to it, the Briscoes or the Funks, or was it Steamboat?" I just kind of said, "Okay." I didn't give anybody up. I kept to myself. But, Jerry came up after me and he said, "I see that you have some potential. But if you look around you, it's the cream of the crop here right now. You're going to get lost in the shuffle." I said, "Jerry, I don't really know anybody." Because, it was like the mafia back then. If you didn't know somebody, you weren't going anywhere. And he said, "Well, Chavo Sr. just took the book in San Antonio, and he's looking for some, talent. Call me tomorrow at this number, and, I'll get you an opportunity." So he gives me the number, right? And, he says, "Make sure you call me at 4 o'clock, not 3:59, not 4:01, but 4 o'clock." I said, "Okay, no big deal." So I call that number, but it's Jerry's number. And I'm thinking to myself, "Okay, why didn't you just tell me to call you, right?" Yeah. But he says, you got to call Chavo 3 o'clock their time, which is Central, not 3:01, not 2:50. I said, "I get it, Jerry. I know." So that was the test, because I'm writing a book. I'm in the process of it, and it's in there. And for me, it was a test to see if I could follow direction. So he sent me to Chavo, and he put me over, and then I had to deliver the goods. And I picked Chavo's brain every night, because I wanted to know more about the business. I wanted to know why we did things the way we did them. And plus, you've seen the Junction, because it was on USA when it was Southwest. And you get the illusion, "Oh man, I'm going to the Junction." And I get there and it's 300-seat arena with a bar in the back and a partition in the middle. And I'm going, "Oh, okay." And I find that out a few times in the different places I went to. But yeah, Jerry helped me out. And then obviously Terry got me booked in Japan. And, he helped me out. And that was another, a who's who of who is in the business in that time in the 80s. Going for all Japan and working for the top company in Japan at the time. So I've been blessed with some good people that helped me out, but I always took their information and ran with it. I didn't say, yeah, I know, like a lot of guys do nowadays, and say, "Well, if you knew, I wouldn't be telling you, and I wouldn't have to correct you if you truly knew." So my advice to any young guy, if a veteran comes up and took the time to tell you something, listen to him, man, because he's already been down that road.
Right. Mr. Santana, I'd like to ask you about what was it like being with Don Owen and down in the Portland territory?
Don Owens, one of the greatest payoff guys in the business, other than Paul Bosch in his day. If the house was there and you were the semi or you were the main, you got paid the money. Don Owens was a funny character. He had the same stories all the time. The lumber mills were closing, the spotted owls killing business. But Don Owens was a great guy to work for. I could always call Don, no matter what, and he would always, make sure that I had a place to come to. As back then we did that with the territories. As soon as you wore out your welcome, you had to move on. But Don was unbelievably a funny guy. He got paid in cash every night, so you had to know how to get the Don to make sure you got all the money.
Right.
Speaking of the Junction, what about the Portland Sports Arena?
That was another surprise. I get there, right? And I made the mistake of going out to the Northwest by no choice of mine, but in the summertime business is down. So here I am thinking, wow, I made a mistake. Maybe, maybe I should have went somewhere else first. And I get to the building and I look at it. I go, this is the Portland Sports Arena. It was an old bowling alley. It was converted, but it worked, it
Yeah.
worked. But, here I am in the summertime, nobody's showing up. As Don Owens would say, they're all rock lizards because they're all out at the lake and getting sun because they only get 3 months out of the year.
Like here.
But then that
Like us,
first
yeah.
day, that first day in September, it was raining. It was crappy out. And I'm thinking, oh, man, because I'm thinking Florida, right? I'm thinking, oh, man, that's ain't going to be nobody here. That building was packed. The line was outside going around. It was unbelievable. And it was a great territory. The fans, unbelievable. They followed their wrestling, and they had their own niche. Not like anywhere else in the country that I had worked, Just to give you an example, if you were up and coming, just young guy in the business and you were a baby face, you worked the first match, and the third match you were the referee on the spot show. So the guy who did that would have to come out and be a referee. That had never happened anywhere else, but in Portland, it was just normal. They didn't see anything different. So Portland was a good territory for me. I made a lot of money, learned a lot of things, working with Rip Oliver and Len Denton, great guys, smarts for the business, knew the territory, and I blended in real well.
That's awesome. And Ricky, have you seen any of the speaking of the territories, the Tales from the Territories that's been airing on Vice there? And I know they covered Portland exclusively on one of the episodes. Did you get a chance to check that out?
Yeah, I watch them all because I like to see the validity in it.
Right.
Some of the stuff is, and I know they're some stuff you see it and I go, well, that's not really what happened, but that's okay. It's entertainment. It's the ratings for me because I had worked there, even up until the last time before they closed the doors after Vince had completely taken over everybody's territory. But it was it's interesting. I like to hear the stories and say, hey, I got a few of my own. I mean, you can contact me and I can tell you some of the crazy stuff that went on out there too.
Right. I bet. Let me ask you this too, Rick. You mentioned about Greg the Hammer Valentine, and this morning I just watched a match with yourself and Ric Flair later on in your career. Yes. There you go. You got him in the headlock there. I made sure giving Flair the old headlock there. That's awesome. But when it came to the figure four leg lock, did one of those two guys put it on better than the other, or were they kind of equal as far as the figure four with Greg the Hammer and Ric Flair?
They both put them on, but I think for marquee value, no disrespect to Greg, but Flair's signature move is his signature move.
Yeah.
Working with both of them was a night off. That particular match was in Louisville. I remember like it was yesterday. I walked in and it was 4 out of 5 segments for the worldwide show. And the old rule of thumb is the heel calls the match, and Nate called everything in that match. The only thing I knew was the finish. And that's something that's another lost art in this great profession is being able to call it in the ring, being in separate dressing rooms and, really, really being in control, kind of like a magician, You're trying to figure out how the trick is done, but he's not going to tell you. You got to just keep coming.
Did you, as far as Flair, would you put him at the top as far as best wrestlers ever? I know he's talked about as one of the greatest ever. Do you put him there?
Yeah, I mean, from a performance point of view, oh, absolutely. Flair went out each and every night, and Flair wasn't a gimmick. Flair was Flair. He went out and he did all that, and he put me over like $1 million. He put me on the national map. And I'll tell you a little thing when he did his retirement match at WrestleMania with Shawn.
Yeah.
After all that, I was there at the building, and I went to the hotel afterwards, and I walked up to Rick, and I thanked him for everything he did for me and what he's done for the business. And he said something to me that resonates with me, and I put it in the book. he said, last time I checked, there was 2 of us in the ring.
Mm.
You may feel that I made you, but you get me relevant. And I said, wow. I said, does that mean we got to have a kamikaze? He said, absolutely, baby. Woo! And we went to the bar.
Absolutely. Like only Ric Flair can. That's another
Yeah.
documentary. Just started
Yeah.
checking that out on Peacock, Becoming Ric Flair. And it basically talks about how Richard Fleer like no longer exists. It's just Ric Flair is Ric Flair. That's him
Ric Flair.
inside and outside of the ring.
No gimmick there, buddy.
No, absolutely not. And what did you think
And
about
you know
him?
so,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, it's so ironic. When I was training and everything else, I was working, obviously, and going to train and everything else. And I came up to Tampa. I was working for Coca-Cola, and they had a seminar thing that I had to go to Tampa. And we decided to go out, right? So I go out, and we go into the hot club at the time in Tampa was Confetti's. And I'm walking in, and Flair's walking out, right? So I walk up to him. And I talked to him in Kearney, which is another lost thing, right? And, I tell him that, I'm training to be a worker and everything else. And he asked me, he says, do you love doing what you're doing? I said, absolutely. He goes, because it's the greatest thing to do. And I said, yeah, I'm learning. And I go, hey, you never know. Maybe one day I'll step in the ring with you. And it happened. So I guess I kind of spoke it into existence. But
even put his ass in a headlock there, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. If you watch the match completely, I even confused the commentators.
Yeah.
Because they didn't believe, Tony Schiavone, he shouldn't wait, he shouldn't. Oh my God, he fooled all of us. He's suplexing Flair into the ring. So it was pretty funny for me to hear the commentary be off and, Rick calling everything in the ring. So
you even gave a couple licks to J.J. Dillon there too, got involved, and you gave him a couple right hands.
Yeah, that was all laid out because we were going from there. We were going down to St. Thomas and St. Martin. And because of that, I was going to show before we went in there, I was going to have a few little rounds with JJ down there. So, the Dream set that up, booking way ahead, booking 101.
Mr. Santana, we have John's wife, Robin Restino, has a question for you.
Sure. Go ahead.
Back in 1985, I saw that you won the Texas All-Star Tag Team Championship as one half of the Hoods against Paul Diamond and Shawn Michaels. And I was wondering what it was like working with Shawn Michaels.
Well, Shawn was a young kid. He was 18 years old. He was gifted because he was a good athlete. And we had a good run in San Antonio. That was a Chavo Guerrero Sr. Idea of the Hoods, because me and Tony Torres, that was the other Hood, were the same size, same skin tone, and we were doing the old Twin Devils gimmick of switching every night. And we got really creative with the commission wanting us to wear different colored masks. And we did a finish where we had the different colored masks, and I pulled mine off, and I have Tony's red one on, and I put my black one on his top of his red one. And we did the switch, and, we had a lot of heat, and it was going really, really good. And then all of a sudden, I guess San Antonio was getting too popular, and the world-class people got a little mad, and they sent down Gary Hart, and that was the end of the San Antonio era.
Oh, wow. Interesting. And the thing too, Ricky, is when I watched your matches, and, when I look at today's wrestling, there's a lot of guys around like 5'10", 6 foot, 220, 215 that are high flyers. I feel like you, not only just in the era that you wrestled in, you stood out, but even in today's era, I think you would fit in perfectly with today's era of wrestling. Do you watch any current wrestling, and do you also share that you feel like, man, you were kind of a high flyer, you were very athletic? I feel like you'd fit right in.
Well, the only difference between then and now is that I probably couldn't do a lot of the moves that they're doing, simply because of longevity for me. I mean, I don't know how many Canadian destroyers I could take, but, I could dive over the top, planchas and topes and all that, because I did it in Mexico also. I could probably fit in. I wish I'd had all the knowledge I have now. But the one thing that I learned that I still believe is true, and if you're looking at the current picture of things in WWE, the Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns angle and the story slowly progressing. You don't see
Yeah.
a lot of crazy stuff. You just see a story being told and making people want to tune in to see what's next. And that's important to me because you got to be able to talk on the mic. I'm a firm believer in that. And you got to be able to create the intrigue to get people to come. If you've been to the circus 18 times in your lifetime and you saw the elephant ride the bike, after about the third time, you just kind of go, okay, what's next?
Right.
So, you need to have that in there. I would have loved to been in the ring, but I don't miss because it was so important for me to learn the psychology of the business. And I was in an era where psychology truly was the most important factor besides being on the mic. Nobody wrote a promo for you. You had to do it on your own. So either you made it or you didn't.
Yeah, which really kind of, the authenticity of doing the promo without it being so scripted. And I feel like WWE was a victim of that, where when Vince McMahon was kind of running things, everything was so scripted. These guys didn't really have a chance to be themselves. And the difference from kind of it's gone away from it now with Triple H in charge, but I would say currently, and then when you look back at like even the Attitude Era, like when Stone Cold, the Austin 316, all that stuff was just kind of organic. So would you agree that less script, more of an authentic would kind of give more of an authentic feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Stone Cold. Well, Stone Cold, him in the ring is a reflection of Steve outside of the ring.
Yeah.
The Rock, every Piper. I mean, all these guys that knew how to express themselves and get you to believe. I still tell people that. I said, look at Jake the Snake. You had to raise the volume to hear what Jake had to say because you never saw Jake. No.
Right. Yeah.
He was always making you. I had the privilege of working a lot because of the NWA territories with guys who knew that. I mean, look at Tully Blanchard. Look at Arn Anderson. Promos that were unbelievable. And I give them all the credit because they were in character and they had people. The Horseman is a perfect example. You know how many times at TBS there would be guys in suits and glasses and watches and putting up the forefinger, the Horseman sign. I mean,
That's awesome.
It's awesome that you can get that. And I even had my grandson, right? He would ask me a question. When I go to give him the answer, and he would say, "It doesn't matter," and I start laughing, because they're all into that,
Right?
They're just funny, But you remember those things. But yes, for you to be you is easier to be you than to be something that you're not, and that's what gives the difference, in my opinion, of character, persona, and development when you want to go out there and become something.
100%. Yeah, I would agree with that. Guys, why don't we do have to check in with our sponsors here. Mr. Santana, we got to do a quick commercial break, like 2 minutes, if you don't mind hanging with us, and we'll come right back. All right, awesome. We'll be right back after we check in with our sponsors here. Hang with us.
Digits 988 can save a life. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, 988 provides connection to free confidential support. There is hope. The Lifeline works. For 24/7 confidential support, just call, text, or chat 988.
All right, welcome on back, Falls Count Anywhere podcast. As Chris properly stated, we are here with wrestling royalty, Mr. Ricky Santana, joining us on today's show. And Ricky, one thing I wanted to ask you about, sir, was the your time in WCW. I noticed that your time was kind of before and after the creation of NWO. Did you notice kind of backstage during that time there just a difference in how WCW was ran? Because there was a lot of talk about, it was kind of the inmates running the asylum at a certain point. Did you notice like that transition once that took place from like the old WCW Saturday nights to the WCW Nitros and whatnot?
It did. It started to trend that way. I was there when it was prior to, and you could see changes coming. I was fortunate enough that I'd be in and out of there because I was doing Japan, I was doing Mexico, and doing all those things. And then I saw the complete transition of it at the very end because I had went in as a producer / agent and be on that table with some of the creative guys. So it was something that came. It's a shame that it had to go that way, but we were killing it for the longest time. And my group of guys were all the cruiserweights. So I would open the show, that was my production, and get the show started and rolling. And I was blessed enough to work with great cruiserweights, Ray and Eddie Guerrero, God rest his soul, and Chavo Jr. and Avon and everybody, Psychosis, all these guys that came in there. I didn't try to change your style. All I did was say, do what you're going to do, make sure everything makes sense. But at the end, this is how it needs to lead out. And this is what I need at the very end. And because I had worked with most of them or with their dads, it was easy for me. So that was, it wasn't a racking my brain trying to get somebody to do something. It was a whole lot easier. So I'm grateful for those guys giving me that opportunity. And I thank them for letting me kind of guide them through their journey, because look where they ended up and moving forward and what they did in the business.
What do you think about? I'm sorry, Chris. I know you got a question. Real quick, I wanted to ask because you mentioned Eddie Guerrero, the late great Eddie Guerrero.
Yes.
Have you watched the current WWE with Dominic Mysterio and that storyline where they're kind of they're I don't want to say using, but they're throwing Eddie into the conversation here and there with, well, maybe it's Eddie Guerrero's kid and not Rey Mysterio's kid. Have you followed that, and what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that kind of, I guess, piggyback off the old story that Eddie and Rey Mysterio had. But I think right now he's kind of like a cross between Eddie Guerrero and a Conan. To me, he's kind of in between there. He needs to find out that his own niche, because imitation is the best form of flattery. But you want to be innovative to be your own persona. You don't want to be, there's only one Eddie, there's only one Flair, there's only one Hogan, only one Stone Cold, one Rock. You can develop and take a bit from everybody, but make your own, entity, make your own character, make your own catchphrase, and move forward. And he's coming along. He's coming along. He's in the right mix. You just got to learn a few things that you control the crowd. The crowd doesn't control you. That's the biggest thing that I see. He doesn't want to forget something, so he wants to anticipate what he needs to do. And sometimes you can see it if you watch it. My kids don't like watching the programs with me because I watch. You ask me if I keep up with the day. I watch SmackDown, I watch Raw, I watch all the pay-per-views, I watch ROH, I watch AEW, I watch it all. I watch them all. But they hate watching it with me because I'm calling the match, I'm calling the finish, I'm calling the promo, I'm calling what's coming up. And they say, Zach, can I just watch it? So, it's just a habit, for me. Like that.
Right.
Even the missus says, will you please let me just watch the show? Okay, I'll let you watch it. Let me go out here. Let me watch it on my iPad so I can critique.
Chris, you had a question?
Yes, Mr. Santana. A thing we do here on our show is Sheik tweets. The Iron Sheik. Any classic stories about him for us?
Guys, there's so many different stories. The most famous one was, they were doing drug testing in WWF, And they told him that he was positive, and he thought that was great because positive, excellent, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. McMahon. No, that means you tested positive. You got to. How is this possible? This is impossible. And it was funny to hear him think that because it came back positive, it was a good thing.
A good thing, right? Yeah.
Right. It was. It cost you money.
Yeah.
So yeah. Causes. He into Puerto Rico, and I was doing the part of the book in there with Carlos at the time. And he was working, I forget who he was working, but he got off the plane and he went to the office, and he was, we picked him up at the airport, and he was hobbling on his left leg. He said, last night, baby, I twisted my ankle, baby. I don't know how long I can go, I tried to make it work, right? So we get to the office, and he gets out, and he's hobbling on the other leg. And I go, Shiki, baby, before you go inside, bro, hobble on the left, because if you're going to work it right. Oh, baby, you're funny. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it was just hysterical to me because, I know he was just trying to make money.
Right.
But, it was just funny. I just thought that he was always entertaining, to say the least. And everybody was a jabroni.
Yeah, absolutely. He's hilarious because his hate for Hulk Hogan on Twitter, like, it just continues to this day. He acts as if, there you go. Like, somebody asked him a question, and he said, "What's the better movie, Toy Story 5 or Hogan has Tic Tac Balls 3?" Right? So he typically doesn't go a week without bashing Hulk Hogan in some way, and I absolutely love that. And he did that a lot with the Ultimate Warrior when the Warrior was still alive, and then when the Warrior passed away, unfortunately, he said, "Hey, it was all the work, Bubba. I love you, Ultimate Warrior. You're my wrestling brother." Do you feel like at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, Hulk Hogan's his wrestling brother, and it's just kind of a work, or do you think he genuinely hates Hulk Hogan?
There might be a little character development there in the sense of, some things that happen, but, he come down and, he put somebody over, I forget who he was working with, but, I don't believe I have to put in this jabroni. I WWF champion. Why I got to put this jabroni over? And then the guy walks in. Oh, thank you very much. Great match. Thank you. And I'm like, hold on a second. You call the guy. Why'd you put him over? Now you're thanking him? Yeah. Oh, baby, just business, baby. Just business. Okay. I get you. I got you, Shiki.
That's awesome. And, he's hilarious. And the thing is, he keeps up with like modern things going on. So he'll always chime in. He chimed in about, the Super Bowl and all that stuff. So and we feature him every week with the Sheik tweets, which we find him hilarious. But Ricky, going back to you, I wanted to also, in regards to one of your matches I was checking out, was a match against the Great Muta. And he had sprayed the green mist while he was walking out of the ring, but he kept kind of dipping his fingers in his mouth, and he was stuffing them in your eyes and trying to get that green mist. That experience of that green mist, what does that feel like? And is it, I always found that very interesting how they kept that mist a lot of the times in their mouth or whatever the case for the entire match. And at the very end, all of a sudden, I always thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was a unique gimmick. Obviously, Kabuki and a lot of the Japanese wrestlers have done it. Working with Muta was another night off. I had worked with him obviously when he was first coming in to the States in Florida. I had to beat him for the Puerto Rican title when we were in Puerto Rico together. So for me, it was the one thing you hated about the green mist was you even got that shit on you. It took forever to take off because it's food coloring, right? Oh. So it it's like you're scrubbing your face, depending on I guess it just depends if he wanted to rib you or not, because you water it down obviously to get a lot of it out. So either he puts it in heavy or he puts it in light. Just depends on how hard you got to scrub to get it off. But that's no fun. it's a part of it, but still no fun.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that it's still used today. We just saw Asuka use it during the Royal Rumble to blind Liv Morgan there. And it worked, and it was a really cool finish to that match. The green mist is still used to this day.
Yeah, that's a Japanese gimmick. They have the trademark on that, as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Santana, what about any Andre the Giant stories?
First time I stepped in the ring with Andre was in the All Japan Real World Tag Team. my partner, another gentleman who has passed on to the good Lord, Doug Furness. And we were in there, and I step into the ring, and it's Andre and the Giant Baba. That was the tag team.
Oh boy.
So the referee's going over all the introductions, and he goes for the one guy in, one guy out, the normal stuff. And I turn around to ask Doug something, and Doug was already on the apron. So I turn back around, and it's Andre. And I'm like, oh, holy shit, this is the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. And he put his hand on my forehead, and his thumb and his pinky were on the backside. And then I, got his hand off of me. I'm going, whoa. And he just smiled and said, welcome to Japan. And he stuffed me to the corner, and he does his squish in the corner. And
yeah,
he brought in Furnace, and he's squishing us both. And I'm the one between the turnbuckle. And I mean, Andre's pushing, and Andre didn't want to move. You weren't going to move Andre.
Right.
And we're trying to push him out. I'm trying to push Doug, and and then all of a sudden, what's Andre famous for? He's famous for that flatulation obsession he has.
Oh, man,
and
yeah.
He just went in the corner, and it was just like, oh, my God. He's going to kill us. And, we're outside, and I'm just like, what was that? And he's laughing because he thought it was funny. But, man, what an experience that was with Andre,
Oh, man. That could have been his finisher, right? Just
Yeah, well, it smelled like a dead goat. I can say that. I don't know what he ate, but damn.
We know he died. We know he drank a lot, so I'm sure that contributed. Some of those drinking stories of him crushing over 100 beers in one night. Did you ever go out drinking with Andre?
Wow.
No, I was smarter than that. I've had a few at the bar with him, and kind of, did the old, I'm going to the bathroom, I'll be right back, and shoot, I disappeared because my liver was quivering and my bladder was about to splatter. I couldn't hang with Andre to save my life. I can tell you that from the start.
Man, and when you see that, I'm sure you've seen it, that picture of him holding a beer can, it looks it looks so tiny. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool, man. And that's one of the guys that I'm always fascinated with is Andre the Giant. Some of the previous guests we've had on our show, it's just always leads to like a drinking story or him just doing something superhuman where you're just like, holy cow. I mean, the strength on Andre. And, from his documentary, if he truly didn't like somebody, speaking of the Sheik, I know he took his liberties on the Sheik and also the Macho Man for wearing too much baby oil. Did you ever witness Andre just kind of going off on somebody or taking his liberties on anybody?
Not in person, but I've seen, matches where you see that and you go, I guess he's on the wrong list, I mean, there's some guys that you don't want to be on the wrong list. And then there's guys that, you're on the good list and everybody else is on the bad list.
Right.
You can go back into that era and it's a who's who, You didn't want to be on Stan Hansen's bad list. You didn't want to be on Brody's bad list. You didn't want to be on Haku's bad list. It was just those kind of things, and the boys were the boys and we all tried to get along. But sometimes, things don't always work out that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's another discussion we've had too, is some of the toughest guys in wrestling. Haku always comes up a lot. The Barbarian was brought up as well.
Harley Race
was another one. Who would you say was was like the toughest? Is there a toughest of the tough, or without putting you on the spot? But I mean, would you say those guys are pretty much?
Yeah, they're pretty much there. I'm really, really close with Haku. We got out of the wrestling business and went into the automotive business and worked together 20 plus years. So, I saw his kids grow up. He saw my girls grow up. Great guy, big heart inside and out, but Lord knows if you ever crossed him, it's like you have unleashed a monster. Harley's Harley, man. I mean, there's no getting around that. Everybody does their imitation of Harley, like, Harley was Harley, and you had to respect him, and Harley earned that respect. I remember we were in San Antonio and he came in for a shot coming through, and it's TV, and the guy comes up and goes, "Hey, Harley, listen, I can do this and I can do that. Well, how about if we do this and how about if we do that?" And Harley's sitting there, and I'm just looking at him thinking, does this guy even have a clue what he's doing? right? And Harley says, what's your finish, kid? He goes, crossbody off the top. Good. Time is right. You go for your finish. I'll move and I'll give you mine. I'm sure you know mine, right, kid? I'll see you out there. And he was just like, huh? And I said, let it go, bud. Let it go. And I looked at Harley, and Harley just shook his head. And I said, you know, we were we were in Oregon, and it was Harley, Don Owens' son, Barry, myself, and Fidel Sierra. Me and Fidel are in the back, and Harley's in the front. And he's driving us to the town, and Harley liked to have his beer. There's no secret. So Harley has got it, and he passes us the beer, and he goes to give one to Barry, and he says, here's a beer. And he goes, no, I don't drink, sir. And he says, I need you to have a beer. Well, sir, I don't drink. He says, well, I don't need you to be a stooge to your dad and tell him that I was drinking a beer before the match. So drink the beer. And he says, I don't drink beer. And Harley rolled down the window. You know, Harley had his gun, pulled out the gun, and shot the top off of the beer can. And it echoed in the back seat like, and I'm thinking, oh my God, right? And he passes it to him, and poor Barry was like, oh. He drank the beer, and he goes, now I know you're not a stooge. You drank a beer with me. And, you know, I'm thinking, oh my God, all right, you know. I said, Harley, you really had to do that? He goes, yeah, I had to prove a point. Yeah, you proved it, all right. My ears are still ringing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, those are those guys. Yeah, it was part of the business. You know, it was a different era. Couldn't do that nowadays. Come on.
No, everybody's got a camera. Yeah, right. Everybody's got a camera these days. It would never happen, right?
Never happened. 3/4 of the guys would probably be in jail. Some of the stuff that we did.
Did you have anybody specifically that you like traveling with? You know, as you were in the territory days when you're kind of moving around the country a bit, did you travel with anybody specifically, or was it just kind of random?
You know, when most of the territories, other than San Antonio, I traveled with Tony, my tag partner, and you know, a couple of other heels like Del VZ, Mike Golden, and stuff. But I got to Florida, and I drove every mile in the Florida territory by myself. You know, in a rent-a-car. So that was an experience. But you know, I met Fidel Sierra there, Cuban assassin, and it's been a friendship ever since. It's over 35 years, and on the road everywhere we went. It was just me and him, and you know, we had a few interesting characters along the way, like Kevin Sullivan riding with us, which is always interesting, you know, and Fonzie, which is always interesting also. You know, we had different people along the way, but mostly me and Cuban, you know, up and down the highway a whole lot.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, we kind of miss those days. That's why we talk about it here on this show. We talk about those territory days because it was just so unique back then. You know, we had a few gentlemen that were part of like the Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine where, you know, for us as kids, we really, you know, there's a few guys you really wouldn't know how they were doing in the wrestling world until you got to that magazine rack and then you saw names like Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and like all the rankings and everything. So those territory days were truly unique.
Yeah, that was so important. I remember I told George Napolitano, he was in Charlotte and he was at King's Gym where all the boys used to train. And I said, hey, George, how come you don't take pictures of other guys in the territory? You know, I mean, there's other of us, you know, Brad Armstrong, myself, you know, Tim, you know, all right. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people here that you could take pictures of. Besides the obvious, you know, we're trying to make it, right, buddy?
Right.
Next thing I know, he's got a picture of me in the gym working out. And so I became good friends with George over the years because of that, you know. So yeah, that's I remember as a kid, I'd wait for that, you know, Wrestling Review to come out, you know, or The Wrestler every month at the local convenience store, and I'd get that magazine, you know. I was a mark before I was smart. I can tell you that for sure.
We're a bunch of marks over here, man. We enjoy this. So. And I say that kiddingly, of course. But man, Ricky, Mr. Santana, we are so thankful for you to just take some time out of your day today and joining us. For us as wrestling fans, it's a huge thrill for us to be able to talk with somebody like yourself who's been up and down the wrestling business and and has so many great stories to tell. We truly, truly appreciate it. And anytime you want to come back and join us and tell some more stories, we'd love to hear about it, sir.
No, I appreciate the invitation. I enjoy it. Like I said, I'm in the process of writing that book. I didn't realize I had so much to write about till I started writing it, and hopefully within the next couple of months it'll go out there, and pushing it to be on Amazon and going around to different autograph signings and promoting it. And it's not a gossip or dirt speaking writing. It's all about, just like I did now, just talking about just some funny stuff that went on the road, and my learning experience, and how I got to learn about the business and learn about booking and why we do things in psychology and why I'm still watching the shows, at my age. So, it'll be interesting reading, to say the least. It won't be that dirt book, because I'm not about that.
That's awesome. And Mr. Santana, when that book becomes available, we'll be more than happy to talk about it here on this show and promote it, and let the wrestling fans who check us out, let them know when that book surfaces and how to get a hold of it. So yeah, we look forward to that as well. Mr. Santana, thank you so much, sir, and you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You do the same, and thank you for having me on, and I look forward to being on in the future and talking to you guys. It was really a pleasure, and thanks for reminiscing the old guys' memories.
Yes, every day in my house.
That's right. Thank you so much, Mr. Santana. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, guys. Mr. Ricky Santana, man, I'll say this. Anytime we get a chance to talk to some of the talent from back in the day and hear these wrestling stories, man, it's just we hope that those that are checking out this podcast, we hope that we're asking the right questions, and we just truly enjoy those stories.
Yeah, man, that was great, John.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's unbelievable. I just love listening.
And the cheeky baby.
Yeah, these guys are. They're, you know what? They don't disappoint me, because these are all, obviously we loved these guys when we were kids and we're watched. They're great guys. It's been nothing but a pleasure to listen to them, and it's been great. Great job, guys.
Yeah, man. Very, very cool stuff. And again, thank you to Mr. Ricky Santana. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's going to lead us, John, if you will, start us off before we say thank you to all our viewers. Why don't you let them know what they can do for us?
Oh, yeah. Now you're going to see this in the on the message board if you haven't already. When you're watching, you can leave us what they call it's a Facebook thing. They do it on YouTube also. You leave us stars, and basically what that is, and here's a little link to it too. 5 stars equal 99 cents, and it goes up from there. If you enjoy our shows and you're enjoying watching Falls Count Anywhere, what would be nice is you leave us a couple stars. Now, the 99 cents is cool, or whatever that is, but we want the stars too, because the stars also give us more, like, it's something to say, hey, we got 3,000 stars, we got 200 stars. It's like followers, and they just brought it out, and we're jumping on board, mine as well, and it helps us also to keep Falls Count Anywhere. Keep improving our technology, keep doing whatever we're trying to do, and I don't like generally to be. I'm not a big telethon type guy, because I don't like that. I feel, because times are tough, I know. But when you see it, if you got 99 cents, throw some stars if you can.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And speaking of which, we'd like to thank and appreciate all our viewers on our Facebook page, of course, is our home. And also on Twitter at Count Anywhere. There's our Twitter handle. And we thank everybody for growing that. And also there, our YouTube, John, also is at Friends with a Z Media Network, and all of our shows are on there, not just this one, of course, but your great sports show like you had on last night, and a guest from Nashville, Tennessee. That was a great show, and everybody should tune into all our shows. We appreciate it. We thank you, and we have guests for the next couple weeks, so definitely stay tuned.
Absolutely. Real quick, guys, there's a lot of intermingling between the world of wrestling and professional football. Of course, we got the Super Bowl coming up tomorrow on Sunday. Quick predictions. I got Philly 30-28. I don't like to count out Pat Mahomes, but I think Philly's the more complete team. I got Philly. John, who do you got? Chris, who do you got?
Well, for me, oh God, I was talking about this last night on the show, and I think Scott made a good point. I could talk myself into either side. Like, it's really one of the weirdest ones. I think if I had to sell it, I could sell either way to somebody.
It's going to be a great game.
I agree. It's a toss-up.
I'm going to say Philadelphia, and that is with an asterisk next to it. The only thing I think is they probably have the better, complete team, like you said, Charlie. And I'm going to say it's going to be a good game. I'm going to go with like 33-31. Nice. Last second type stuff. Good game. Here, I'll give you one thing. Whoever stops the run wins.
There you go. Okay. I like that. Chris, what do you like?
Well, I don't have a score. I think agree. It is a toss-up. Two great teams. But I like Kansas City, but you got to feel that maybe Philadelphia, it's their year. I mean, look, they started out like, 10-0, 11-0.
Yeah.
Undefeated team.
They're on fire,
so
yeah.
It could be their year this year, but I don't know. It's a toss-up. Hopefully it's a good game to watch.
I hope so, yeah. Of course, that's the Super Bowl. And as we head towards the Super Bowl of wrestling, WrestleMania, in the next few weeks, as we are on the road to WrestleMania, things are kicking up a notch. We got Cody Rhodes getting involved now with Roman Reigns, and he had a segment last night, I should say, on Friday Night SmackDown with Paul Heyman, or was that Monday? I forget. I'm getting old too. But anyway, they had a great promo. It was on Monday night where they were talking about Dusty a little bit, and they got a little personal with things. So very, very cool where they're starting to go with that as we start to see maybe the demise of the bloodline. So as we approach WrestleMania, as I segued from the Super Bowl to WrestleMania, that's like the Super Bowl of wrestling, if you will. And we look forward to that. So we'll be talking that as we go on forward here. But John, do we have any public service announcements we want to give to the public here? We are a show of the people. We like to give some helpful information as we wrap up here.
All right, this one this week is a little bit of a tougher one, I know sometimes, but I think it's important that we bring it out. This right here is 1-800-656-HOPE. As you can see, it's free, confidential, 24/7. You can read what it is. It's a hotline if you've been assaulted, and it could have been when you were a child all the way up to currently now. If you look at the statistics, sadly, it touches more people than you would think, and it male or female. So 1-800-656-HOPE. You can go online to rainwith2ns.org. It's always confidential. They're there on Christmas. They're every day. Anxieties and stuff, give them a call. They're there to help you, and they will find places in your own community to make sure you get the help you need.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that, John. Very, very helpful information. We appreciate that.
Just real quick, Charlie, real quick, we got NWA's pay-per-view tonight. And then week after, next Saturday, the 18th, we have Elimination Chamber by the WWE. So some pay-per-views upcoming.
Absolutely. We'll definitely get into more of that next week. We'll talk about the NWA and the Elimination Chamber, as you mentioned, Chris. Definitely, man. Good point. So, gentlemen, otherwise, have a great weekend. Enjoy the big game tomorrow. And again, we thank you to each and every one of our viewers for checking us out, and we'll see you again next week. Take care, guys.
Yes, thank you.